Hi friends, we are back here for chapter 5. I talked a couple of videos ago about the fact that we're going to be switching back and forth between perspectives of the main characters each time we switch a chapter. So chapter 4 was from Maxie's perspective, and now we're going to read from Drita's perspective. So when school is over, everywhere there are children and their families rushing to meet each other. I don't know where to look to find my mother, and I start to feel quite worried. But there, waiting for me outside the school, is grandmother. It seems so strange to see her there, wearing her old-fashioned robe plach and holding Hashim by the hand. My teacher shakes my hand and says something in English. Goodbye, Drita. See you tomorrow, she says. Grandmother, where is Nene? I ask her because I thought my mother was the one who would be meeting me here. My grandmother just shrugs. She is still much too tired from the trip. Come, Drita, take your brother's hand. We must hurry for the bus. Bus? No one said anything about a bus to me, but I follow my grandmother through the doors and across the street. There is a big sign for the place where the bus will stop. Grandmother, I ask, are you sure this is the right place to wait? Yes, now come on, she says, because the big blue and white bus is coming down the street. But are you sure this is the right one? I ask her again. They are all different, you know, I say, trying not to sound worried, but chasing after her. Even in Kosovo, my grandmother was not so good at going places by herself. Oh, Zat, Drita, you talk too much, my grandmother says, trying to hold Hashim's hand, but he is moving around too much and won't stay still. Bad boy, scolds my grandmother. Hashim puts his baby finger to his mouth and begins to cry. Now I know my grandmother must be worried. Usually, she's more patient with my little brother. We climb up the steps, and my grandmother puts some money in the slot, just like in Kosovo. It seems strange to me that even though everything in New York is different, the buses are exactly the same like the ones in my country. Up, my grandmother says, putting Hashim into a seat. My grandmother unfolds a little piece of paper and studies it. The words 112 Bedford Avenue are written there in my father's handwriting. Our new home. The bus turns down a street and we pass the market. In the morning, this colorful and noisy place made me happy, but now all I feel is worry. Across from us there is a lady in a black jacket and a boy, a little older than my brother. They are staring at us. That lady looks nice, grandmother, I tell her. Go ask her for help. She doesn't speak Albanian, my grandmother says back, in our language. But if you show her the address, she might know, I say back. I know a few words, and maybe if she speaks really slowly, I will understand her English. But my grandmother just shakes her head. The little boy smiles at us, while his Nini looks out the window. From the way that he is chewing, I can tell he has a big piece of gum in his mouth. Now, more and more people get on the bus, but these people do not act friendly towards us. They have dark faces and clothes. They stare at the floor or read the newspaper, and soon the bus is so crowded I know my grandmother is lost. At last, the lady grabs her son's hand and they stand up. I'm worried that once they get off the bus, no one else will speak to us. But now, we're lucky because the nice lady comes over to us. She holds the metal rail and smiles down at us. Are you people lost? She asks. My silly grandmother is still staring straight ahead, afraid to speak to any American person. I know it is not so nice of me, but even if my grandmother is mad, I don't care. I take the paper from my grandmother's hands and show it to the nice lady. I try to remember some of the English words my father is working to teach me. Please, I say, where is? The lady looks at the address. Come, she says, waving her hand, follow me. I almost have to pull my grandmother off the bus and down the sidewalk. That way, the nice lady says, pointing in one direction. You go very far. Standing next to her, the little boy blows his bubble. Pop, it goes, and the pink candy is all over his face. If we were not so lost, maybe this boy would be a good friend for Hashim. He doesn't have any in America yet. Thank you, I say to the lady. Now we begin our walking, and first we walk 10 blocks, then 20. Oh, boo-boo, where is it? My grandmother says. I think it's very far, I tell her. But the sign says Bedford. Poor grandmother. She's still confused. Yes, but look, the numbers on the buildings are different, I tell her. That means we are far away. Soon, Hashim becomes so tired I have to carry him in my arms. Zat, my grandmother complains, my feet are so sore. Because it feels like now we are walking 100 blocks, but then at last we see the building that says 112, our home. My grandmother groans going up the stairs. This city is too big for an old woman like me. I think my grandmother is right. This was too much walking for her, and for me too. If only my mother had come to meet me, we wouldn't have had such a bad time. But when we open the door, I see that it is true. My mother is still too tired from the trip, because she is lying on the bed just like she was this morning, wrapped in a blanket, and she is fast asleep. Okay, friends. So, in that chapter, Drita and her grandmother, they get lost, and they're nearly almost 40 blocks from their home, and it's kind of it could have been worse. She could have continued to stay on this bus, and it could have gotten she could have been too far from home to maybe even walk back with Drita and her much younger brother Hashim. And this all happened because grandmother was far too afraid to ask for directions to get back home. My question to you, which I will put in the description of this video because I don't expect you to remember it right now, the question I'm going to ask you to answer is, why is she so afraid to ask questions? Why is she afraid to ask the people on the subway for directions? And my next question is, would you ask for directions if you were in a foreign country? Why or why not? I want you to think about that. Again, those questions in this chapter is going to ask you to take a step in their shoes. Kind of walk through the shoes of Drita and her grandmother. Wonder excuse me, wonder what they were feeling, what they were experiencing. I mean, in a big city, not just any big city, but New York City, and they're alone. They feel alone. They don't speak the language. They don't understand much of the language yet. They're learning. But I want you to think about how that must feel. And when you're thinking about that and you're empathizing with Drita and her grandmother, I want you to check the description of this video again for those questions to answer. Okay? All right, friends, I'll see you later for chapter 6.